Hi, STAR students. Today we're going to be looking at Lesson 16 from your language handbook, which is using context clues. In the introduction it says, sometimes when you're reading a story or an article, you'll come across a word that you don't know. When you don't know the meaning of a word, often you can figure it out by looking at the words and sentences around it. When you do this, you are using context clues. Okay, now before we get started in your language handbook on page 494, I wanted to look at some other examples that might help explain kind of what we're doing. So when you're using context clues, one way is you looking at the definition and seeing if that's somewhere in the word. Sometimes a sentence includes a definition of the word. So in this example, living in a frigid or extremely cold place can be difficult. You very likely don't know the word frigid. And so in this sentence, there's also the definition of that word. Once you know that definition, you can start thinking about other synonyms that you might know, like chilly, frosty, ice cold, glacial. And now you have a greater understanding of what the word frigid is. But besides the definition, sometimes a sentence might also give an example that explains a word. So, frigid temperatures in the Arctic can be as low as 58 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. Now, you may not know exactly what that means, but you understand when you're talking about below zero, that's something that's very cold. So this example is helping to have you understand what the word frigid means. So now let's go ahead and look at some practice together. It's always nice when they provide a little hint that gives you kind of clues as you're going along. It says, as you read, look for the words such as. These words might introduce an example that helps you to figure out the meaning of an unknown word. So, the instructions say, use context clues, the whole thing we're talking about today, to figure out the meaning of each underlined word. Write the meaning, then circle the words that were a clue. Now, I'm not too worried about this section about underlining and saying exactly what it is, but I would like us to go, is it example or is it a definition that's being found? So number one, it says, animals adapt by changing in a way that allows them to live in a certain place. So animals adapt. Well, changing in a way that allows them to live in a certain place is an example of adapting. So adapting means to change. Number two, the polar bear's furry snout and ears help it survive or stay alive in the cold Arctic. Well, survive is followed by this or stay alive. It's giving us a definition. So survive means to stay alive. Number three, the white fur of the Arctic fox lets it hide from predators such as wolves. Like it said, that such as is probably giving us an example. Predators such as wolves, well, wolves are enemies of a fox, so predators means enemies. And number four, the Arctic bee has to shiver or shake to keep itself warm. So just like up here, when we have this comma or something comma, it's actually giving us more information. In this case, the definition. To shiver means to shake from being cold. I'm only going to leave this up for a few seconds. You can always pause it, but I just want to show that what something like this might actually look like, where we followed the directions, we circled the words, we wrote down what we think the definition is, and then I chose to add this little section about this is how I knew. This was an example. This was the definition. More examples. It says, read the sentence below, then use it to answer numbers 1 and 2. So these definitely go hand in hand. When you answer one, the next question should actually help you to make sure that you feel comfortable with your other answer. That happens very much with this type of curriculum. The ground squirrel hibernates, sleeping for months during the winter. What does the word hibernates mean? Well, it gives us some choices. Hides in the ground, hides for a long time, sleeps because it has nowhere to go, and sleeps to live through low temperatures. Well, our sentence has the word sleeping in it, so it's not just hiding. It must be C or D. Because there's nowhere to go to live through low temperatures, winter we know is associated with cold. So our best answer for this one is D. Sleeps to live through low temperatures. Now the next one says, what words help you to understand the meaning of hibernates? Well, right here we have this comma. It's giving us some more information. Sleeping for months during the winter. Sleeping and during the winter. Likewise, on the other side, read the sentence below, then use it to answer numbers 3 and 4. The fur on polar bears helps them repel or keep away cold water. What does the word repel mean? Well, to fight, to push something away, to make something warm, to soak up or take in. Okay, well, none of those are word for word here. Repel or keep away. Well, right here, if you push something away, you're helping to keep it away. So I think right now that's what I'm going to put. And if I look at the next one, what words help you to understand the meaning of repel? Well, like I said, keeping something away and pushing it away are very similar things. One is the action, and the other one kind of has to do with why you're doing it. So I'm happy with those answers. Okay, I think we're actually ready to start moving on to page 494. So again, that's page 494 of your language handbook. Now, already you can see that on that last page we were looking at, there was only two types, definition and example, and now we have a third. Not only that, but I want to emphasize that as you get older and the type of text you read become a little more complex, the way that you might find the definition or example might not be in the exact same sentence. It might be in the sentence before or after, or even somewhere later in that same paragraph. So let's look at the examples they give us. Looking for a definition. In high school, Jim Lovell built his first rocket, a jet engine that could fly to great heights. Gives the definition right after the word. Find an example that will give you clues about the word's meaning. Lovell's first attempt was a failure. His rocket flew into the air, but then exploded and crashed. In the next sentence, it gives an example of it being a failure, and so now we know what failure means. And this new one, look for a restatement. A restatement happens when the word is discussed in a way that makes its meaning clear. A rocket is pushed upward by materials that are combustible. These materials burn and release gases. So there you go, restating kind of what combustible means. Take a look at the section down below, guided practice. Once again, there is a hint. Sometimes context clues can be found in a sentence before or after the word you're trying to figure out. Keep that in mind. Read the paragraph below with a partner. Circle the context clues that help you understand the meaning of the underlined word. Write the meanings of the underlined words on the space provided. Jim Lovell had always been fascinated by rockets. He was interested in learning everything about them and even built his own rocket. Lovell applied to the United States Naval Academy, but was rejected. After failing to get into the academy, Lovell did not give up. He persisted, or kept trying, and finally succeeded. After the academy, he joined the NASA program. So we have our three words, fascinated, rejected, and persisted. We'll just go one by one. Fascinated by rockets. What does it mean for him to be fascinated by something? Well, by rockets, he wanted to learn everything about them and built his own. So it either has to do with building it or being interested. And in this case, it actually is just being interested in the rockets. Being interested in everything about them. Next one, we have rejected. He applied to the academy but was rejected after failing to get into the academy. So he failed to get into it. He persisted or kept trying. Well, and whenever we have that or right after, it almost always is giving us the information we need. So if you'd like to pause here and finish writing what you think they mean, I'm going to add it to. As you can see, I've written down some possible definitions for fascinated, rejected, and persisted. Also not required, but wrote down what I think kind of the type of context clue it is. I will say I did want to update one thing. Rejected does mean failing, but specifically in this case, our clue is failing to get into the academy. Being rejected kind of has an external source rather than you just failing. So failing a test is not quite the same as being rejected, even though we might use the same word in this case. Well, just like it says, this is independent practice. Feel free to try page 495 on your own and then complete the Google form. But I'll go ahead and read the selection and read the questions in case you'd like to have those read for you. For numbers 1 through 4, use context clues to figure out the meaning of each underlined word. NASA chose Lovell to command the Apollo 13 space mission. Lovell was in charge of 2 men and of making all final decisions. After they were in space for a little more than 2 days, Lovell and his crew ran into trouble. One of the oxygen tanks blew up. The explosion caused a leak in another tank, and now there wouldn't be enough oxygen for a moon landing. Lovell and his crew had to return to Earth. Their safe return was due to Lovell's capable leadership. So we have our excerpt, we have our keywords command, explosion, and capable. Question number 1. What does the word command mean? To study? To fly with others on? To be at the head of? To be a part of? Number 2. What words help you to understand the meaning of command? In charge of, two men, space mission, or chose Lovell? Number 3. What does the word explosion mean? To leak, a bursting of something, a lack of oxygen, leaving outer space. And number 4. What does the word capable suggest about Lovell as a leader? He is gentle and patient. He is skillful at leading others. He is harsh to those he leads. He is weak when leading others. So your objective is to complete this page, try the Google form, and don't forget, whenever you're doing reading on your own, these are some strategies to help you to understand more clearly the words that you are encountering. You can look for a definition in the text, you can look for an example, or you can look for a restatement. And when all of those things fail, remember, you also have outside resources, whether it be using a dictionary or using somebody else who might know what the word means.